my question to you is, what are people really thinking about when they're getting married that they often don't think about if they're getting divorced? Like, what are some things that people overlook, especially when it comes to like laws that they're not even really fully aware of? Because I feel as though a lot of people who are getting divorced, because I have some friends, one in particular, who got divorced, and there are certain things that were brought to their attention that they didn't even know was a thing in marriage. What are some of those things so people can kind of get an idea of what they're getting into?
I think that I have this conversation a lot, and people are always angry when I say it, but I think the biggest misconception is what marriage actually is, right? So marriage is a legal contract that binds people together.
Okay.
That's what it actually is, especially here in the United States. That's what it is. It's a legal contract that says legally, I'm responsible for you. You're responsible for me. I can make decisions on your behalf. You can make decisions on my behalf. We're financially bound together, right?
Okay.
But because, marriage often has a religious or what's the word to use? People think that marriage is about your spiritual bond, right? And it is, right? It can be, right? Depending on who's getting married. But I think that, when people get married, they get married based on that first, without understanding that this is a legal contract, right? You're bound to one another.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that until it's time for a divorce, right? So, hey, I got married, we bought a house together, but my name is on the house.
Yeah.
And, his name isn't on the house, or her name isn't on the house. And my question is always, well, when did you buy it? Was it before you were married or after you were married? After. But I put the down payment and I'm on the mortgage and she's never paid anything or he's never paid anything and it's my house.
It's
well,
messy.
it was bought during the marriage, right? Yeah. So it's a marital asset and it's both of your houses. What do you mean? You know what I mean?
They
and
get
I'm like,
shocked. They're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
This is the whole thing? That's crazy, because my friend who had gotten married, like when you sign a marriage certificate, right, or a marriage license or whatever, it's like a sheet of paper, pretty much, right? But when you're getting divorced, it's a Bible.
It is.
So to me, I feel like that's a big bait and switch for people who are getting in these relationships, because it's not like a driver's license like you just toss in the garbage when you're tired of driving a car. You know what I mean? So with marriage licenses, you sign an agreement to do something where the terms aren't discussed fully until you're wanting to end it, which is kind of crazy and backwards to me.
It is.
Why is it like that?
Because like I just said, people don't understand that a marriage contract is just that. It's a legally binding contract, just like anything else, right? And depending on how you negotiate the terms at the time of or before marriage, then you can either come out better or you can come out worse at the time of divorce. God forbid, you're not going into it for divorce. But because we put such a huge emphasis on the spiritual connection that you're supposed to have in a marriage, we don't think about the contractual agreement that two people are, making with one another. And I think that causes what you're saying, right? We got married because we were in love and I just love him and I love her and I want to spend the rest of my life together. Okay, cool. Do that.
The thing is, like, I've always thought about, like, where did the idea of marriage come from? Because I know, like, union is not necessarily a new thing. And marriage in today's environment, meaning within the last, like, century, is not always what it's been throughout the course of human history, right? Some of the studies that I made show that the entry to marriage in civilized, environments really came from like agriculture, right? This is going to sound crazy, right? So I looked this up. Usually, I don't want to say usually, but prior to like civilized or industrial people, we were nomads, like just traveling through the wilderness, trying to survive as a group. People were procreating with each other in large groups and masses in order to like grow the population of their tribe in order to survive against like famine, predators, weather, so on and so forth, right? And all kinds of nature. obstacles. But then what happened was when we started to understand how to manipulate nature, aka agriculture, grow your own crops, irrigate the land, things like that, you didn't have to chase things anymore, right? So then men in particular who knew how to do these things like start fires and so on and so forth, they wanted to control paternity because there was no such thing as paternity. And apparently their only way of controlling paternity and being able to focus their efforts on their personal offsprings and not the offsprings of a miscellaneous man is to put contracts out on wombs and women. So that way they can say, okay, this person is pure, they're a virgin. I'm going to trade a goat for this woman and I'm going to breed children so they can help with the crops to continue to like, it was like an industry, right? And it was accepted because unfortunately for women, they didn't have the access to wealth and, any kind of assets that will give them any type of financial benefit. So the only way to find any security is to be purchased by a family to raise children and so on and so forth. And then it just eventually evolved to where we're at right now, which is not so much that, but at the same time, it stemmed from that in a lot of ways. Do you recognize any of that in like people's psyche a little bit, or is that just something that's kind of overlooked?
You mean today?
Yeah, today, because like, are you seeing a lot more like still traditional, like I'm a woman, I want to be taken care of, so I'm going to get married to. Yeah, even with the progressive nature of our environment. Why do you think that is?
Because I think that the gender roles between men and women is still very much instilled within us, right? So I encountered a couple at one point that I was having a conversation with a married couple, and a guy was saying, I remember the time when it was legal to beat your wife.
Wait, why is he bringing that up?
Exactly. My point. Why was he bringing that up? Right. And his wife is sitting there and I'm like,
and she was like, yes, ma'am. Yes.
Like, well, what do you think about that? Right. How do you feel about when it was legal to beat your wife? Are you wishing that it was still legal?
She probably was like,
it was like, I was like, why did you bring that up? But yeah, I do think that you definitely see it. You see it more now, right? And I understand the mindset, right? Because there's still a huge wage gap between men and women, just being honest, right? So unfortunately, women can be just as educated as they want, have years of experience, but a man, because he's a man, can still walk in the door and start out making more money than she is simply because he's a man. So no matter how progressive we are becoming, it's still very much a man's world. So I think that because of that, the ideology is still going to be the same within marriage. People are going to think that, well, you're a man. So because you're a man and I'm a woman, I need you to take care of certain things. And just like men are the same way, because you're a woman, you should be doing certain things, right? And I think that we're going to continue to evolve as a society and a culture, but I think that that's still going to be a huge thing that we deal with. Patriarchy.